that is here for giving me this opportunity. Actually, I was just hoping that I would sort of settle in and let the ECA head set the pace and the tone, so that I can come in and see how I can fit. But now you've put me to bat first, so I'll just do that. So good morning, ladies and gentlemen. First, let me say how honored I am to be here, welcoming the advent of CSAC, the Climate Smart Agricultural Compliant Tool. You know, history teaches us that to change the future, first we have to imagine it. The adoption of the CSAC in guided and fashioning farming practices denotes that we have a tool that will allow us to start imagining the future of agriculture in a changing world. From the perspective of someone like myself, who has been involved in direct field intervention to influence farming practices, I can truly say to you that we have been anticipating such a compliance tool for some time now. In 2011, and for 3 years after that year, I have led a team through the kind auspices of the Cropper Foundation and the Inter-American Development Bank multilateral facility in a participating effort to develop sustainable farming practices among farmers in 4 of the major valleys of the Northern Range. From the outset, it was clear to us that we needed a vision to articulate our suggestions to these farmers, because farmers who farm this land are not visionless. They have a clear vision of their future, and in most cases, that vision transcends economic returns to social and, yes, environmental legacies that they are willing to pass on. In those days, we created a localized metric called the High Nature Value Index. And this was to relay a simple locational fact to these farmers that the Northern Range is a high nature value environment. And that if they are operating in this high nature value environment, they need to be very specific as to what they do. Then in 2014, I worked alongside Steve as part of a team under the auspices of ECA Barbados delegation in Barbados, I guess, to be more precise, that investigated how the entire CARICOM region was faring in the face of climate change challenges to our own agriculture. We are a team of 7 consultants looking at the challenges and prospects for building resilience in agriculture in 11 Caribbean territories. But we all recognized that we needed to envision the bigger picture, that we needed a more precise vision to promote agricultural practices that can be executed in a smart way and become sustainable in the face of changing climate conditions. Well, with CSAC, we reach. From the perspective of field activities, and I stress field activities because, to me, farming practices have to do with field operations, not with the biology of the plant or the microscience of pest management. So, from the field activities perspective, I would like to give you at least 10 ways in which this climate smart agriculture compliant tool will ensure that our innovations in agriculture are appropriate, correct, measurable, and meaningful. Let me start by the most obvious. 1. The CSAC tool presents a framework for characterization and analysis of climate smart innovations. 2. It helps us to clearly and unambiguously identify climate smart innovations. This means that not only do we have to know that our innovations are genuine, but we must also be in a position to recognize and acknowledge the achievement of farmers when their ideas also contribute to building resilience in local agriculture. 3, the logical sequence of the first two is a recruitment potential built on the verification of innovations. This is recruitment of skills, tools, inputs, and practices. We're not only looking for new capital flows into the agricultural sector, but for new skills and experiences. We are looking for farmers or land users who innovate. That is, persons willing to test and try new methods of conservation and production on their own initiative while being guided in their choice of ideas from various sources. The CSAC tool provides this type of guidance. Fourth, the setting up of a monitoring and evaluation system for climate smart agriculture. CSAC provides us with measurable parameters for the new paradigm in which the growth and expansion of our knowledge set will continue. And the fifth, and I guess one of the most obvious but important ones, is the formation of complementary networks. The technology transfer envisioned in meeting our challenges to farming is not the off-the-shelf try anything new approach, but it is a very focused approach, and CSAC is providing us with that focus. You see, building resilience in farming is really a microbial response that is encouraged by farming practices. Farming practices themselves do not have simply the resilient content. It is mostly the microbial activity in the soil that such practices encourage that builds resilience in our agriculture. Now, if and when you study it carefully, and I've had a peek into this tool, you will see that the CSAC tool mimics the microbial complementarity that goes on in the soil among different species, both simultaneously and sequentially. But there are other reasons that are not as obvious, but that I must mention to you. The sixth and the less obvious one is that the CSAC tool is really a virtual reference point for internal farm self-development. The FAO claims that agricultural investment is really one of the most important and effective strategies for economic growth and poverty reduction. In a practical sense, the CSAC tool will provide guidelines for building resilient capacity within the strategically important sector, and this will be a capacity that will pay long-term security dividends to our region. But more importantly, and my 7th point, is that this tool points us to what I will call an ecologically sound muster zone. What I mean by this, the international food security system is very volatile, and you will know this. And there is no reason why ours should become an appendage to such volatility. When that volatility becomes too close for comfort, then we will all be looking for a place where we can exchange the most appropriate experiences that can enrich the practices within the sector. And this is what this tool will help us to focus on, that muster zone from volatility. And then there are 3 other practical ones. On the financial basis, this tool provides a platform for the ministries and the banks and the support structures to devise, well, for the ministries to devise incentives for new farming and experiments in support of a more resilient farming system. It provides a basis for financing farming interests that are compliant with best practices that will have the potential to become sustainable. And ultimately, it provides an outline of a manual for training officers, NGOs, and all of us who would seek to support agriculture in this changing environment. Let me close by making two observations that are very close to me. The first observation I want to make and to throw to you is that, from my perspective, anecdotal evidence suggests that farming is becoming the preferred practice for early retirement. When I was growing up, and I say that because I can see that I have quite a few people who are in my age bracket, more than the wide group of young farmers and the new persons in Part D. When I was growing up, though, the post-retirement trend was to go into selling insurance. Yeah, you know, by then you would have made enough friends with enough income to afford your policies, and you would have accumulated experience in convincing people to buy something they may or may not need. Today, the attraction is land ownership, land possession, and land occupation. Land is the legacy asset in today's world, and the easiest way to make it remunerative is to grow crops. Now, I have to go off script here because in trying to convince to you that this farming is becoming a post and an early retirement occupation, I thought, as I did early this morning, that I really should just simply adopt Steve Maxime's method of actually doing, a proposal like this. I was interested that he said to me, he said, "You're not going to project anything." And I said, no, I'm not going to project anything. But if Steve was making this point in the standard Steve Maxime presentations, you've gotten something coming out like this. You would have gotten, see if I can get this going. I'm not online, but I was trying to size up here, 1974, and the Calypso by Shadow that said, I was thinking about forget Calypso and go and plant peas in Tobago. But I am afraid
I can't make the grade.
I can't make the grade. That's what I was trying to line up, and to line up to see if I could have gotten it come on my system. This is how Steve would make his point, by putting this in there. Afraid I can't make the grade. The point is this, that now Shadow can really forget Calypso and go and plant peas in Tobago, because CSAC will make sure that he will make the grade. And that's the importance of this. And it's important to me because these individuals, and I can tell you quite a few of my friends who have come from engineering and from marketing, etc., and they're all talking about farming. And these individuals are coming into the sector with some capital of their own, but more so with the capacity to research, learn, and innovate. This compliance tool gives legitimacy and guidance to them in sustainable farming practices. But think of it. If our system continues to evolve, these are the very individuals who are poised to become the major mentors of the next generation of Caribbean farmers. We need them to be correctly oriented. The second observation has an even more personal twist. Now, I grew up in British Guiana then, better known in the 50s as BG. It was a cycling society. Everyone rode bicycles for transportation and not for exercise and recreation, as my friend Chesney can attest to that. But as a youth, you learn to identify the most critical part of this asset, the bicycle. And it was not the wheels, the spokes, the chain, the gears, the light, the brakes, yes, not even that little bell that pre-warned pedestrians of the oncoming danger of on your cycle. No, it was something that was called the sprocket. That was the part that transferred the kinetic energy of your pedaling skills to every function on the bicycle. In agriculture, we define an innovation system as a network of organizations, enterprises, and individuals that are focused on bringing new products, new processes, and new forms of organization into economic use, together with institutions and policies that will affect their behavior and performance. Well, CSAC is the sprocket needed for the continued growth in the agriculture innovation system. CSAC is the tool whose radial projections will engage farmers, extension workers, support institutions, financing units, government agencies, and yes, an enlightened customer base in recognizing the beneficial applications in our agricultural system. This is the tool that will get us started in building a community of climate change adapters in agriculture. And we will recognize this change when we see the emergence of a real, or rather real chambers of agriculture that will promote climate smart, innovative practices to improve the economic, social, environmental performance of farms in this changing world. So, I must take this opportunity, and I'm glad to do so, to thank you very much, Steve, for bringing about this tool. You have opened the doors, or as they say in more ecclesiastical terms, you have flung wide the gates, so that we can build truly innovative agricultural system. So thank you too, and thank you everyone.